One. Hey, welcome to Missouri Sports Network, MissouriSportsNetwork.com, where everyone has a home field advantage. Certainly glad you've tuned in today. Special show today here on High School Game Day. We've got two of the foremost coverers, I guess, so to speak, of high school sports from each end of the state. Dave Kvidahl from St. Louis High School Sports.com, whose work appears in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and Bailey Harbit, who is the KSN Sports Director in Joplin. Lady and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me, Guy. I appreciate it.
You bet. A lot of big games here in the state of Missouri. We're 2/3 of the way through the season, just the three regular season games remaining, and some conferences to be decided, some district seeds up for grabs this week. And we'll start with Miss Harbit there. Probably not a bigger game. If there is, it's tough to find a bigger game than Carthage and Joplin here in the state, both teams undefeated.
Yeah, it's one of those games that we knew, weeks in advance that if both these teams were undefeated, this was going to be the game of the week. And it just kind of happened to work out that way. With Joplin beating Webb City earlier this year, we kind of knew the only other team they'd really probably have to worry about was Carthage. So yeah, this is a big game, big conference game. It's got a lot of conference implications. Both these teams being undefeated. Pretty much whoever wins this game kind of has a leg up in the conference. I know that they'll also be looking at the Webb City Nixa game too, but whoever wins this game kind of controls their own fate. It's a game that with a lot of really talented players. Always right, the quarterback for Joplin. We talk about him all the time. Over on Carthage's side, you've got Luke Gall. He's a very good player for them. Cade Cabance, a former wide receiver who moved over to quarterback this year, and he's done a really nice job. It's going to be an offensive battle. I really think this game's going to come down to who has the best defense. So we'll see what happens. Personally, I think you have to kind of give Carthage the edge. I think they have the better defense, but this is a big rivalry game. It's going to be played in Joplin. It's their homecoming. They're going to be fired up. So it's just got a lot of really cool, interesting storylines, and we're really looking forward to it tonight.
Yeah, you mentioned also you've got Webb City Nixa, which will have a little bit of a play in that conference final as well. You got a Webb City team that hasn't lost 3 games in a season in 6 years. And so that they're on, just uncharted territory for John Roderick's Cardinals.
Yeah, they're not really a team that we're used to talking about them losing a lot. We actually talked to him earlier in the season about that. And it's John Roderick. He's not going to panic. He's not going to tell you, he's concerned about anything. He has, complete faith in his team. So I don't know. I think this will be a really interesting game as well. You never really can count out Webb City, even when they're on a down year. They're still better than 95% of the teams in our viewing area.
I had an opportunity to interview Coach Roderick after his 300th win earlier this season. When I looked up the stats, I was dumbfounded that he'd only lost 31 times.
Yeah, he doesn't do it very often.
It is unbelievable. And this is the first time this season, or second time, I should say, in Webb City history that one team has beaten them 3 years in a row, that being Joplin. You got to go back to the 86, 87, 88 season where Mount Vernon did it. And I was a quarterback on that team, so I remember that.
But, okay, so you had a personal experience in that. Well, yeah, good for you.
I did indeed. But Mr. Kvidahl, there's big games in St. Louis too. You've got Marquette, Kirkwood. You've got Holt, and it slipped my mind. Troy Buchanan. What are the outlooks there in the games that you've got?
Well, Holt and Troy should be a lot of fun in the GAC. That conference has been really good. Holt, just beat Francis Howell last week for the first time in a long time. And Troy just rallied after losing in the last 30 seconds to Francis Howell. They cut down a halftime deficit to knock off Timberland last week. So that conference is up and down. Holt is in the driver's seat currently, and I think up to number 3 in Class 5. So the Indians are looking really, really good, but the Trojans are as well. So curious to see how that goes. That should be a lot of fun. Kirkwood Marquette, like you mentioned, Kirkwood was off last week for their Turkey Day bye game, so they can play Webster Groves, and then on Thanksgiving Day, and then they lost their running back, Deion Brown, who against Hazelwood Central in the third quarter. He had rushed for 12 touchdowns and was pushing towards a school record in rushing yards actually. So I'm curious to see how they bounce back with that extra week off. So the really big game is Saturday afternoon, high noon at St. Mary's in South Grand in South City here, as Cardinal Ritter and St. Mary's are going to play each other, a big rivalry game. And St. Mary's hasn't, what was I? At St. Mary's, it's their last home game. That's what I was going to say. I'm sorry, I got lost. So last home game for the Dragons this year before the postseason, and they're in a bit of a battle with Valley for the top spot in their district as we get into week 7. District seedings really start to take shape, as you mentioned before.
And it's Valley Catholic because St. Mary's Class 3, and I believe that's who ended Valley Catholic season a year ago, if I'm not mistaken.
That is right. And then COVID ended St. Mary's before they went to go play Kennett. You're getting on the bus.
Wow. Outstanding. Well, other games in the area that I'll be paying particular attention to, you've got Ava playing Thayer in a South Central Association matchup. Ava is 6-0. Thayer comes in at 5-1. Their only loss is to Hayti, Thayers, and Thayer, and very similar teams with Ava and Thayer, and they're both like they like to run the football, very physical. This will be a 2-hour and 10-minute game. Clock's not going to stop. It'd be one to cover, except you've got to drive a long way to get to it. But other games in Marionville, and Bailey and I talked a little bit off air about this. Marionville and Sarcoxy. Marionville 6-0, state ranked, maybe number 4, but Sarcoxy comes in. They're 5-1, and got to visit with Peyton Grubbs, the Marionville head football coach, earlier this week at the network, and he was a little bit nervous going into this game because he feels like Sarcoxy is faster than player to player. They're faster than Marionville. He said, we just got to make sure we wrap up, and if they get away from us, we can't catch them. But so that's another interesting game here in this area. And as you look at maybe some of the other sports, they're kind of winding down. Volleyball is coming to an end. They're about 90% through with their season. I know Lafayette Wildwood is having a tremendous season there. I just got off with the air with Nixa Volleyball, who their only loss in the state of Missouri is to Lafayette Wildwood. This season they're 22-2 overall, and just some tremendous things kind of coming to a head here as we head into the football playoffs. Has anything really kind of surprised you, or I shouldn't say football playoffs, fall playoffs? Has anything kind of surprised you? And we'll start with Bailey. This season we've already alluded to perhaps Webb City, on the verge of maybe losing their 3rd game of the season. I was surprised. Sarcoxy was a surprise to me that they're 5-1. But anything else kind of jump out at you in any sport in particular?
Yeah, I mean, really just like focusing on, football, kind of that's what I've been spending a lot of my focus on. Yeah, like the smaller teams that, maybe in years past haven't been as good, that have had really, really good seasons, like Sarcoxy. Aurora jumps out to me. They've had a really good season as well. I believe their one loss coming to McDonald County, who only has one loss. Nevada. They've had a really good season. I am a little biased, obviously, but they've had a really good season with their one loss being to Lamar. Really just the Big 8, the Big 8 conference, just really just top to bottom how strong they are. I mean, they have a lot of, teams that are just really good. And, kind of, I feel like we're not used to that. We're usually just used to talking about Lamar, but now we've got all these other little teams that maybe, maybe not this year. I think this is pretty much Lamar's conference to win this year, but these other teams that have kind of started to maybe catch up a little bit, and we're not seeing, as much. I mean, Lamar's still been dominant in pretty much every game, but, I feel like that gap is really closing. And I think that's kind of an exciting thing to see. I think it's just good for high school football in general around here.
Well, and I think that you talk about that Big 8 conference, and it's kind of flipped with Lamar remaining on top, but you've got the teams like a Cassville, a team like a Monette that have traditionally been so good and won state championships in the last decade, and Mount Vernon, who went to a state championship. Those teams are really struggling, and now you've got the Auroras, coming up. Springfield Catholic, who struggled a little bit on the other side of that. But you look at a team like Marshfield, who's really having a tremendous season, and their quarterback, his coach's son, Cody Bull's son, is the quarterback there at Marshfield, and he's having an outstanding season. So I kind of see that's kind of flipped a little bit. In the Ozark Conference, it's the usual suspects. It is West Plains, Lebanon, Camdenton. Bolivar's really struggled. Lebanon and Camdenton, I forget, that's a Highway 5 game tonight. That's a huge game between two schools. That's a rivalry like similar maybe to Glendale Kickapoo or Aurora Mount Vernon. That's a huge rivalry. But David, in your areas, you look at some of the schools, in your area, anything that surprised you at this point, 70% through the fall season?
Well, first of all, the fact that we're already going into week 7 is incredible. It just, you wait all season to get to football season and it goes by in a blink. So I hope everyone's enjoying it. But actually this fits really great because my feature story for the Friday Football Spotlight on STLHighSchoolSports.com was about the Winfield Warriors, who are off to one of their best starts in school history. Since 99, we have online stats that go back to 99 on our website. So come check them out if you're ever looking for games in our area. But the Warriors, 0-10 a couple of times, 1-9 many times, finished over 500 or better, I think 3 previous times. So 4-2 this year. They've doubled their win total in the GAC North Division. And they formed a co-op with Ellsbury because Clopton Ellsbury dissolved. And then the Ellsbury boys were looking for a place to play. So Winfield brought them in. Same county, Lincoln County. So they ride the bus down to practice every day, and they're 4-2, and they got a pretty good Warrenton team tonight. But should they win, they would set the new school record for most GAC conference wins. Because like I said, they've only got 4 in their history, 2 this year. So that's a big surprise. But the spring football, we had a lot of teams in the city here in North County in areas that were really hit hard by COVID opted into spring football last school year. So they carried over into the fall, and I've just been really impressed with how they used the spring season and brought it with them. Soldan was a pretty good story early in the season. Bashan is state ranked in class 4. The McClure, we had the McClure guys ranked early because they were actually the best team in the spring season, but Hazelwood Central is now moving up in class 6 as they're still undefeated. And like I said earlier, they beat a really good Kirkwood team. So I've been really fascinated by how the spring football season affected it, because currently we are the only state that has an SEC team that does not have any kind of spring football. So I don't know, maybe this is something Missouri should consider letting happen. So, but I'm just really fascinated by how that's going.
Outstanding. If you could pick, and we'll go back to Bailey, if you could pick a team in your area that you're covering in any sport, to win a state title, who, and I know where you're going to go because there's, but who would be the most likely?
It would have to be Nevada football. Honestly, I feel like Wes Beechler probably deserves a statue at Nevada with what he's done in both times he's come back to Nevada. But I think it would just be so cool for that town. We've been so bad for so long, and we weren't used to having a good team. And now, the last couple of years, those little kids getting beat up, and now they're upperclassmen, and they've been playing varsity since they were freshmen, and they know what they're doing. And I just feel like there's excitement around the team this year, and when I call home and talk to my parents, they're always, talking about the team and how they're doing. And I don't know, I just feel like they would probably be my number one, just because, it would be nice to have that, maybe kind of, I know Lamar has way more than we do, but it might be nice to say we have a state title in football. But that would probably be my pick. Pretty much anything Nevada, honestly, just because I am so close to home and I get to cheer them on. I'd probably say anything Nevada.
All right. Well, and Wes Beechler, as you mentioned, this is his second tour of duty at Nevada. He had spent some time down in the South Central Association, came to Parkview, and really, they had lost something, I want to say 54 consecutive games, and he kind of got that turned around and got their first win, got them turned around. Then he went to Nevada, and then back to Republic, and then back to Nevada, and then I think he was in Kansas at some point for a bit. But no, Coach Beechler, a great guy, and it's, in this area, Lamar would be, that'd be an easy bet, and that'd be too easy of a bet. I think you'd be on the I think everybody in the state would bet on that, because I don't think there's any way in the world anybody can touch them in class 2. Class 1, you got to give Marionville maybe a little bit of a shot. I know they lost last year to Windsor, who ended up being the champion, but that was a close game. Skyline has played well also, but Skyline and Windsor are in the same district, so both of them can't come out of that. But Ava has maybe got an opportunity there in class 2 as well. David, you look around, the St. Louis area, maybe you go to volleyball, maybe Lafayette Wildwood is probably, a favorite there. But on the football side, I mean, Kirkwood, I know they were undefeated until they lost to Hazelwood here a couple of weeks ago. And then they, of course, you said they had the off week for the Turkey Bowl on Thanksgiving Day with Webster Groves, the oldest. I think that's the oldest rivalry, maybe west of the Mississippi. Yeah. But who are some teams there that maybe Vashon, maybe a Soldan, maybe has an opportunity?
Well, it's interesting because Union and Vashon are in the same district, and that's, after week 6, I kind of took a quick look at district standings, because now it's kind of interesting to see how things are sorting out. And Vashon and Union are neck and neck for the top spot. Now, Vashon's going to end with DeSmet in week 9. So you get 20 points playing up a Class 6 team as Class 4. So that win or lose, they're probably going to come out ahead of that one. So it'll be interesting to see if Vashon has to go to Union for a Friday night, or if Union comes to the city, maybe even a Saturday afternoon, depending on how that goes. But St. Mary's is probably the team I would pick that has the best opportunity if healthy. The Dragons are really special. Kevin Coleman is one of the top wide receiving prospects in the country. If it not for Luther Burden, who was at Cardinal Ritter and transferred to East St. Louis, he's an interesting story. He played in the fall at Cardinal Ritter and then went into transferred to East St. Louis and played the spring season because Illinois moved football to the spring. So he actually got a full school year of football. But he would be the number one. He's the number one prospect here in town. But Kevin Coleman, in almost any other year, would be the number one guy. He is just that elite. Florida State is on his short list of places that he's going to pick to go. He's a All-American Bowl guy. So St. Mary's is probably my pick to be the best bet from around here. I don't know if MICDS can get past Smithville, and they're on the same side of the bracket. I was actually talking to our buddy Dion Clisso at Preps KC about this the other day, and those might be the 2 best teams in Class 4. No disrespect to Hannibal, who I know has been really, really good, but that's a really tough semi. So I don't know. Whoever comes out of that's got a good shot. And then CBC DeSmet, historically, the last 4 years, that team has gone to play for the state championship. Whoever wins that district wins the semi and then takes their shot. I don't know if Hazelwood Central will have something to say about that in the other district or Joplin for that matter, but Liberty North looks really, really good. And I think they're very well deserving of a shared number 1 with CBC. That's a pretty good football team out there. They're really rolling.
You bet. You've got, close to you. I don't know how close it is, but Jackson plays Farmington. Jackson 6-0, Farmington 5-1 going in there as well. But before I let you go, I'll go back to Bailey. Any interesting stories you've got coming out here you want to kind of promote with KSN? You are the sports director, and I know you're working on something.
Well, I'm always on the lookout for story ideas. I will plug we brought back the Missouri Southern Coaches Show for football this fall. And my weekend anchor Rain and I have brought that back with a new head coach, Tiva Bradley. He's a Joplin guy. He went to Southern. So he's kind of breathed the new life back into that program. And so we thought, what better time to bring that show back than this year. So I believe, oh gosh, it's all blurring together. I think this is week 6 now that we'll be doing the show. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been good kind of getting to do that. So that's really been my big project, has been kind of just focusing on getting that show back off the ground. But as far as stories go, always kind of keeping an eye out on stuff. We do have a Joplin player who recently, his mother passed away. And so he's been playing the season for her. I would really like to talk to him about that. So we've got a couple things coming down the line. Raina's always doing stuff, with our local high school teams. So yeah, it's just a very, very busy time here for us. Always have something coming up.
You bet. And Dave, anything you're working on? I read the Winfield article just before this morning when I went in, just to kind of do a little background, but obviously you've always got things you're working on there too at St. Louis highschoolsports.com.
Well, we got a football spotlight every Friday. Notebook runs Tuesday online, rankings somewhere around there as well. So that's every week. I'll be, like I said, at Kirkwood Marquette tonight. I'm going to Cardinal Ritter and St. Mary's in the City tomorrow. And then, we'll see. We got lots of stuff, but we cover everything. They let me watch football most of the time. Occasionally I get drafted in to do other things, but we got a whole team of people covering high school sports like nobody else in the country. And I can say that because it's true. So give us a look at stlhighschoolsports.com. And by all means, download our app if you'd like to, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
Hey, I've got it. I've got it on my phone. I follow everything. And you guys do a tremendous job. I can always go there and find, they're updated stats. When you go in there, you can pick your sport in football. And I post some things, who's leading the state in rushing. And, there's some folks in Kansas City that do some things, but there, and then Max Preps, just coaches put stuff in so many different places. I wish everybody just put it in the same spot, but it makes it challenging for me. But once again, we've been visiting with Bailey Harbit, KSN Sports Director in Joplin, Missouri, and Dave Kvidahl from STLHighschoolsports.com. Work also appears in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. But lady and gentlemen, I certainly appreciate this, and I've really enjoyed it, and I hope to do more things like this. And hopefully, didn't take up too much of your time. But I know the listeners and the viewers will greatly appreciate your expertise.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Guy.
You bet. You're listening to and viewing highschoolsportsnetwork.com. We'll be back after this.